went to church last night at 4:30, and on the way out, I talked to the priest and said, "Can you say a little prayer for Trumbull High School?" And he said, "Can't do it. I got to pray for prep." So he's a prep guy. So we had a little bit going against us today, but.
Obviously, we got a little chip on our shoulder, that talking to the guys, that feeling sucked last year. And, it's up to us to, turn that narrative around and win this thing.
And mostly, I'm just happy for the players. I mean, these guys took it to heart. They've had a great offseason. They've worked their tails off. They had an unfortunate ending to their Thanksgiving, and I think it really just opened eyes and reminded everyone that this can be taken away from you if you don't go out and earn it every week. And the way they played this week on Tuesday and Saturday, I couldn't be more proud. There's still one more left, and there's no doubt these guys are going to have a great week of practice and put all they can into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Meat Grinder, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut. And we have reached the state championship weekend. With me, as always, is Pete Paguaga. Peter, how are you?
Good, excited. It's been a sprint. We're here. It's been a sprint.
Slog.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last, 11 days, 12 days? 3 games, Thanksgiving, who's in, quarterfinals, who's moving on, semifinals, who's going to the championship, luncheon. Now we're here. Capsules, preview stuff. It's been a sprint, man. I, for one, am exhausted.
I'm exhausted. It's been a sprint, slog. It's just one chapter to the next. Highs, lows, lots of work, lots of, everyone's, and we're not, it's not just us. I like to tell coaches that I feel like I'm in the same boat as you guys. It's like, all right, now it's on to the next thing. No rest, no time to look at what you've done and be like, wow, you have to do that after the season. And unfortunately, of Christmas, you got to go Christmas shopping, tree shopping, and all this other stuff you got to do before the end of a semester. And it's just a crazy time of year. But, we are at the finish line. It is in sight. We're down the home stretch. We have 6 state championship games at 2 sites. The matchups are as follows. If you are living under a rock or just joining us from somewhere else, we'll start off at Central Connecticut State's Arute Field in New Britain, the 10:30 a.m. game. It is the Class S championship. You have top-seeded and undefeated Ansonia versus Bloomfield, the number 2 seed, in the 7th championship matchup between these two powerhouses. They've both won 3 apiece against each other, so this will break the tie. In the 2 p.m. game at Arute Field, you have the Class L championship between 3rd-seeded Maloney, the defending champions, and number 4-seeded New Canaan, which hasn't won a state championship since 2016. And finally, in the 5:30 game, the Class SS championship, you have Barlow back in the final for the first time since 2018, looking for its first football championship versus number 6-seeded Valley Regional Old Lyme, which hasn't been to the final since 2014 when it won it all. Heading over to Rentschler Field in East Hartford in the 10:30 a.m. game, you have the Class M championship. Number 5-seeded North Haven back first time since 2015, facing defending state champ number 3-seeded Killingly. They won the Class M title last year. Now they are in Class M. 10:30 a.m. at Rentschler Field. In the 2 o'clock game, it is number 1-seeded and undefeated Berlin versus number 2 Notre Dame-West Haven. The Green Knights looking for their first title since 2009, and Berlin looking for its first title since 2009. And finally, in the 5:30 game, the big one, Class LL, number 2-seeded Greenwich versus number 5 Fairfield Prep in the 3rd meeting between these two schools in the state championship game. Fairfield Prep has won both of them, but hasn't won a state title since 1988. Greenwich looking for its first title since 2018 and its first under Coach Anthony Morello. Those are your matchups. A coach to be said during the luncheon on Tuesday morning, he said, they make allow all these teams to get into the playoffs, and it's still the same damn teams over and over again. That is for sure. Although I would argue a couple of these are upstarts trying to make their mark into blue blood status. You have New Canaans, you have your Greenwiches, you have your Fairfield Preps, but I mean, Berlin's only won one title. They're looking for more. Maloney certainly likes to, is elbowing its way into the elite status here. But overall, your thoughts on the 6 state championship matchups?
I think a lot of them are going to be really good games. I think we talked about it yesterday, last night. I think we looked at the games last year and we were like, okay, 3 of these games could be potential blowouts. And I think we were somewhat right on that. I think in 2019, we had an idea that, the M game was going to go one way, the S game was going to go one way. The L and double L game were going to go either way. I think you look at this, and I think there are 4 games in here that are coin flips, that either team can win and either team can go home with the state championship. So I think that's kind of exciting. Is it too many? Yeah. but you talk about whatever coach said, you could get more teams in. It's still the same teams. If we didn't have more teams in, it would have been different teams. Prep wouldn't have been in.
Yeah, well, they probably
right?
would have.
Some of these teams might not have been in.
Yeah,
Prep getting in at 7-3 and with only 4 divisions. I don't know, but I'm just saying, it's the same teams because it's expanded, and then those programs, the better, more consistent programs, are winning out over time. So I don't know. I'm excited. I think all the games could be fun.
I look at this you look at it like the 2014 season when we had 8 champions and how ridiculous that was. And we can all agree that was ridiculous. But Tom Brockett always likes to say, look, the games are great. And he's right. The games were great in 2014. I mean, the games are great is not a good reason to expand the playoffs and then give us more championships. I saw that argument 100 times over the weekend. That's not the reason why. The point of the championships is to crown champions, the best teams of a certain grouping. We have, again, I know 140 something teams in the state, 6 champions. You're basically lording over 23 teams, which is a league size. Let's just call them league championships, or which is what I like to do that kind of help me get through it a little bit, is you just call them kind of like bowl games. These are bowl games. These aren't really that's not going to, maybe this year it will. There's not one dominant team this year. We'll get to that in a second. But, you look at all these matchups and there's not one dominant team. There's not one matchup. You look at this and go, wow, you know what? We're missing that game. I wish we could steam in that play. I think that is just a happy accident. I don't think that's something that's going to be a feature. For sure, there's going to be games down the road or down the years from now where we're going to look at it and go, I really wish we could see that game. The benefit of the alliance, which, I think is very flawed, but the benefit of that is that at least maybe you might see a matchup that you might not get in a playoff because double L versus L. But again, you kind of hope they can do it. Like back in the old days, you wouldn't have had that matchup. So at least the alliance gives you the hope that maybe they can get that matchup together. But, at the end of the day, I don't, I just want everything to be categorized right. But when I look at this weekend, it is going to be an excellent football weekend. I don't know about you. We've kind of divvied it up. I'm going up to Rentschler Field. You're going to Arute Field at Central Connecticut. I actually asked some of the kids, I said, were you silently rooting for Rentschler Field? And to a man, I think there was one guy who said, I didn't care where I play. But for most part, everybody who was going to Rentschler, they all love the fact that they're going to Rentschler. They were excited for it. It's a grass field. It is raining right now. We're recording this on Wednesday morning. It is pouring right now. So we'll see what kind of effect that has. There could be some weather down the road too, but I'm very excited for these games, Pete. I think the most important question from GameTimeCT standpoint now is, Pete, out of all these games, who the heck is going to be number 1 when it's all said and done, so to speak? How do you figure this out?
I have no idea. I don't know how you figure it out. I'd like to say the winner of the double L game gets my vote. I'd love to say that with confidence, but I'm not confident because you have 2 one-loss teams playing in Class L who played in, tough conferences, right? New Canaan played in the FCIAC. Though they didn't play the toughest schedule in the FCIAC, they still come from the FCIAC. And then Maloney plays in CCC Tier 1. It's not like a CCC Tier 3 team that got in here, won a couple of games, and is playing for a chance to win a state title. Maloney is tested. The biggest thing that I have a gripe with myself is looking past certain losses. And I'm able to look past Greenwich's loss to Southington. That was a 1-point loss. Greenwich's loss to Staples. That was a 1-point loss. I'm trying to bring myself to look past Maloney. I saw Glastonbury last Sunday in the semifinals, and Greenwich manhandled them. Just they dominated them from warm-ups. And it's not taking anything away from Glastonbury. They had an excellent season. They have Eric Hennessy's a great coach. The team, had a great season going from 2-8 to 9-2. There's nothing you can take away from them. But Greenwich was hands down the better team. No questions asked. How did Maloney lose to them? Right? So if Maloney lost to them, then that tells me in my head that Greenwich is clearly better than Maloney.
Right.
Even with 2 losses, they play in a tougher conference, they had maybe some tougher games to play than Maloney. Not that, Maloney is no joke. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, how can I vote Maloney over Greenwich? And then on the flip side, New Canaan didn't play Greenwich. They didn't play Staples. They didn't play Trumbull. Right? Their 2 big games in the FCIAC were Darien on Thanksgiving and St. Joe's in the middle of the year. And St. Joe's beat them up.
Yeah.
And Greenwich beat up St. Joe's. In a close back and forth game, Greenwich was able to pull away. But they won by 10.
They were convincing.
Yeah, so they won by 10. And then you got Prep on the other side, where if I can't look past Maloney's loss to Glastonbury, can I look past Fairfield Prep's 3 losses at the beginning of the year? One which was to Fairfield Prep. One which was to Hamden that Greenwich beat by 40.
Yeah.
Now, that all depends on who wins that double L game, obviously. They're not voting against each other. We're gonna know who to vote higher after that game. So I don't know. I'm glad we don't have to vote this week.
Yeah.
Jeff Jacobs asked me who I'd have to vote for number 1 if we had a poll this week, and I have no idea. I think I said Prep because I think they're playing the best, but I truly don't have an idea.
So you're saying there's not one game that let's say if Greenwich beats Fairfield Prep, are they number 1? And Maloney beats New Canaan, is Greenwich number 1? I mean, is that the possibility?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a split if Maloney and Greenwich won. It would not surprise me.
Well, Ned Griffin of the Day had a really good point. I think he said no team has ever been voted number 1 at the end of the year with 2 losses, which is what Greenwich has.
I looked that up last night, confirmed that only 0 losses or 1 loss.
So as far as precedence goes, Maloney would have a really good case, especially if
the winner of Maloney New Canaan would have that
an excellent
precedent
case, because New Canaan also has 1
but
loss.
Precedent got thrown out the window in 2017 when Killingly finished as the only undefeated team in the state, and they were the first team to be the only undefeated team in the state to not be voted number 1 at the end of the year by the media members.
Right. So in that case, there's precedent there, but there's also a new precedent. But I think you kind of have to look at this, on a kind of. You kind of have to look at this and who's playing the best toward the end of the season. And I think right now Greenwich is making a great case for that. It was no contest against Hamden, and then against Glastonbury, a team that that beat Maloney, no contest. I mean, Greenwich is just firing on all cylinders. And to me, like, Maloney would have to really do a number on New Canaan to make it harder for me to vote, especially if Greenwich, does a number on Fairfield Prep. I think Greenwich for me has the inside track. They would need to lose to lose my vote for the most part, or Maloney would really have to impress in beating up on New Canaan. But that's kind of like where I stand now. I think Maloney's got some ground to make up on Greenwich. Now, if Fairfield Prep wins and Maloney wins, then we got to have another conversation there. But I mean, if Prep beats up on Greenwich, 3 losses, Pete.
I know but I think precedent has to be thrown out the window because we're in an unprecedented season. 48 teams made the playoffs this year. We've had 6 champions before. Never 48 teams in the playoffs. And, if there was 4 divisions and, the same number as last year, does Prep get in? Maybe, maybe not. We don't really know. We could do the math and put it together, but we haven't.
It would be close. I think they probably would have made it in double L, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, but I just think that it's an unprecedented
maybe they go to
time.
Greenwich. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
maybe they go to Greenwich.
But you know what? If we don't have 48 teams in, maybe St. Joe's doesn't lose in the first round. Maybe Southington doesn't lose in the first round. And all of a sudden, these teams are now in the mix that aren't in the mix this year. And I think that changes a lot. And I think that should take away, I think that should change the overall thinking, because this is more, I said this to someone, this feels more like March Madness when you're looking at like resumes now, right? You're looking at resumes. And if Fairfield Prep wins the double L championship, there's not a team in the state with a better resume than they do.
If Fairfield
undefeated in SEC Tier 1 that could have 3 state champions.
Lost to a team in Florida, but did lose to New Canaan, which if Maloney beats New Canaan, I got a little bit of a problem there.
Yeah. And it
was early enough in the season. You got to go back. That's part of it too. I look at those teams. I've seen them all up live, and it's almost like the eye test. Like, they got some dudes on Greenwich, and they got some dudes on Fairfield Prep. They got some big kids, man. Not to say that Maloney doesn't, but
Maloney's got weapons too, though.
Right now, I know, but I'm talking about just overall eye test. You look at them walk onto the field, you're like, oh my goodness, Yeah. I'm not saying that.
We said that about Fairfield Prep last year, and Darien made quick work of them in the finals. So that's not everything.
No, certainly not. But I think right now, again, the way I'm looking at it, and maybe voters have, whether they're right or wrong, I've been at odds with them all year. Usually, like a team that I think should be number one, then they end up losing, so the voters were right in the first place. That's been a common thing this year. But I guess the other question is, does Ansonia or Berlin, do they have any shot at number one? I mean,
I don't think so. And I'm going to go back to 2019 to Shane. That 2019 team was really good, loaded with a lot of good players, 2 first-team All-Staters for us, and they played 2 double L schools and an L school that year because of the SEC schedule. They struggled against Hamden, had to pull it out late, like a 51-40 game. Then they lost their other double L game, and they lost an L game. They lost to North Haven, and they lost to another team. I'm blanking on it. And then they ran through S like it was preseason. Yeah. And they beat Bloomfield, and they beat Ansonia on the way to the championship. Now, was that Ansonia team as good as this Ansonia team? Probably not. Was that Bloomfield team better than this Bloomfield team? Maybe. They had Anthony Simpson, they had Darren Bryden, they had Javon Massey. They had a lot of good guys on that Bloomfield team, and Sheehan, put up 60 on them. And, Sheehan dominated in that postseason. We talked to those players, and they said the 3 playoff games were the 3 easiest games they played all year. And that's an S school, right? So I have a hard time believing. I think Ansonia or Bloomfield could compete for a quarter or 2 quarters, a half against a Greenwich or Prep. But I just think they're or Maloney or New Canaan. But I just think that their lineups are bigger, right? Their kids don't have to play every play. They're not playing 2 ways. Not every player is playing 2 ways. So, you get that wear down. People are going to vote Ansonia 1 if they win. I know that they're going to. And I know people are going to do it for Berlin too.
I don't know if you're going to see Notre Dame. I mean, you might get one outlier. I mean, I don't have a problem with that during this wacky season, but I agree with your point that, it's 20, 30 years ago, teams could compete at the same level regardless of class. That's not the case anymore. Specialization, lots of other factors, depth, and those are all things like the years of Ansonia getting number 1 over Greenwich, a 1-loss Greenwich team lost to this class 3A champion in Florida. That I would not make that vote again. I would go with Greenwich. Back then I didn't, and I know I got a lot of flack from Greenwich side. And to this day, I kind of look back, I go, possible. But they did beat Jordan Reed, Ansonia, and those guys, and that was a Jack Cochran team, so it was no joke. But now, no way. It's just the number one team is typically going to come, especially in a when you're not going to see these teams really play each other. There's even been a pull away from teams playing anywhere near a class that's higher than them, or two higher, or three higher in this case. So I agree with that. I mean, I think that they'll be in the top 5 perhaps in Ansonia or Berlin, which I know you would drive you nuts. I don't necessarily agree with that, but at the end of the day, really no one matters who's number 2 or 3 or 4. They just remember who's number 1 that year. And I think it's going to be either Greenwich or Prep or Maloney or New Canaan. I think New Canaan's got a long shot. They would have to really win, and then Prep would have to win a squeaker. But even then, it's like that'd be
even
tough.
then. But New Canaan didn't play Greenwich this year. They didn't play Staples this year. And that is a huge flaw in the FCX scheduling system. The fact that those programs don't play each other every year.
Yeah.
It's a roll of the dice.
And I think Prep is playing great. Greenwich definitely playing great. Maloney definitely winning games. I mean, I wouldn't say that they're pulling those games out. I mean, good for them. And New Canaan has just kind of struggled offensively all year. And it's been the same story in the playoffs here. So they're kind of slogging along right now. So I'll be interested to see what's going to happen.
How much do you think name recognition is going to play into voting? When you have programs like Greenwich and New Canaan that have been number 1 before. I mean, New Canaan was voted number 1 like 3 years in a row in the preseason. And then you have Fairfield Prep, which I don't believe has ever been voted number 1, or it's been a really, really long time since they were number 1 at the end of the year. And then you have Maloney, which is just kind of upstart, not upstart because they've won a title, but in terms of planting their flag as a premier program, they still need to win another title or two, and here they have a shot to beat New Canaan. They already beat Darien this year. How much do you think name recognition plays a factor into this voting, where if it's Maloney versus Greenwich, how many people are just going to vote for Greenwich because, we know Greenwich is a football factory.
We know over the years, the poll has been accused of having a Fairfield County bias to it, or at least a Southern Connecticut bias to it. And I think there's something to that, only in the fact that there are going to be more voters down here. We try to spread it out, but there are just going to be more people down here that just see these teams more and are more inclined to vote for them. We try to spread it out, but there's not as many media outlets up north anymore, especially now.
Some of them refuse to vote, which doesn't help either.
So there's definitely been Glastonbury could not get a sniff at number 1. They 13-0 in 2008, and they gave it to New Canaan, which I think Glastonbury beat Cheshire convincingly, 35-14 or something like that. And New Canaan needed to scrape by. It was relatively convincing, but they scraped by Darien a second time in as many weeks. Because they beat them on Thanksgiving and that overflow crowd at Boyle Stadium. But Glastonbury could not get a sniff. They had the Gatorade State Player of the Year, Brown, at running back, and just could not get a sniff that year. And what? Who's to say? Who's to say whether that was a good one or not? I mean, there've been plenty of over the years. No matter what happens, it's going to be at the end of the day, there's gonna be people complaining about it, and we're just gonna have to move on our way. But it's been that type of year where it's just completely subjective. There's really no objectivity to it. It's just gonna have to be an eye test, and then who does the one thing I don't want to see someone throwing up 28 points just to make it a 35-point blowout. You know what I mean? With in the fourth quarter. I don't want to see that. That's not where I'm gonna put my vote. But
yeah, there's no style points.
No. I mean, there is to a certain degree. If you beat a team convincingly, but if you're throwing and putting points up in the fourth quarter and the game's long decided, that's not going to sway me. But
yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get some input from the voters at the games that they're. I mean, you're going to be at 3 of them. I'm going to be at 3 of them. So we'll at least we can tell each other hey, yeah, this team scored late, or this game was over early, and they took their foot off the gas. I don't know. It's going to be tough. This is going to be. I mean, this poll has been really hard to do all year. If anyone gets my emails to Mike Fornabio for these polls every year, it's a 1 line. Every week, it's a 1-line quip about I have no idea what's going on because everything changed so quickly, and each week someone had a big win, someone had a big loss, and you sat there and you're like, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I obviously don't.
All right. Well, we could go on and on about this, but we have a lot of work to do here. We got to go. What we're going to do here is we're going to preview each of these games, each of the 6 championships, and then Pete and I are going to make our picks at the end of it. So for the first, we're going to go from bottom up. We're going to start with Ansonia Bloomfield. Take it away, Pete.
In the Class S finals, we have a matchup that has been seen many times before in the postseason. Ansonia and Bloomfield are 2 of the most storied programs in state history. Ansonia has won 20 state titles, and Bloomfield has won 9. The 2 have met 6 times in the finals, with each team winning 3 times.
It's going to be a great game. We have great respect for them, and I think they have great respect for us, and that's what rivalries are really built on. And the series has been real even. There have been some great games. We most certainly look forward to Saturday being another one.
The Chargers come into the game at 12-0 and are looking for their first state title since 2016. David Cassetti is one of the state's top two-way players and is joined by Makai Ingram to form a dynamic duo on offense that is outscoring opponents 41-13.
I think it's the bond we have. We've all been playing together. We all get together really well. We have a very different bond. We gel together on the field probably better than a lot of other teams. And our chemistry and the heart we have. Second half, we just think we're gonna win.
Bloomfield is back in the Class S finals for the 4th straight season, with their only win coming in 2018 over Haddam Killingworth. The Warhawks are led by the Kerr twins, juniors Devion and Davion, and junior quarterback Darian Foster. The team lost 2 games this season, a 6-point loss to Killingly, where they led in the second half, and a 3-point loss to Berlin the week Bloomfield boys basketball coach and assistant football coach Kevin Moses died. Bloomfield has won 8 straight, and the Warhawks are in search of their 10th title.
Our 2 teams are we just feel like our programs are great, and we give a lot of respect to each other. So, we're excited to play in this game. We're hoping for another Bloomfield Ansonia Classic, so we're just excited to play at Central as well, and looking for a good game.
We just got to play as a family. We wasn't really a family last year, and we wasn't sticking to the plan. All we mainly got to do is do our job and execute the play and stop complaining and play as a family.
So, Pete, the 7th time that these teams are facing off in the state playoffs, and you look at them. I think we looked at them at the beginning of the year. Ansonia, Bloomfield. I think we were going to be fine, just fine, if that was the matchup. And here we are. What do you think of this game?
This has the makings of being an all-time classic game with 2, blue blood storied programs in the state. Tom Brockett and Ty Outlow, talked about mutual respect between the 2, and there are playmakers all over this field. And I think it could be a really, 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 really fun one on Saturday.
What are you taking?
I'm going to go with Ansonia. I think Ansonia has been playing really well. I think one benefit that they've had this year that they haven't had in past years that I think Ansonia fans are not too happy about, but they've been in close games. They've had to be resilient. They've had to play with their backs against the wall. Against Holy Cross. Holy Cross was inside the 20-yard line with the chance to take the lead or tie the game late. And Ansonia stepped up, defense stepped up, they made a play, and they won the game. And I think that being in those situations this year, against Gilbert Northwestern, they were in a close game. Obviously, Naugatuck was a close game. Being in those close games helps build resilience for games like this. And for that reason, I'm going with Ansonia.
Pete, I'm going to go with Ansonia too. I just think the Chargers are just so great in this spot and have been all year. When the chips are down or when someone's knocking at their door, they always seem to find a way to respond with Cassetti and those guys. The defense has been pretty solid. I mean, they're going to have a lot of trouble with the Kerr twins, who have been dynamic players and game changers too. And Darian Foster at the quarterback position has been pretty good. The only problem with Bloomfield is they really haven't had a solid running game. And I know they've tried a bunch of different guys between Jaden Jesserum, Rodriguez, and even Davion Kerr. Oh, but sorry, Davian, eat with an E. He ran during the the Holy Cross game. So Pete, I'm going to go with Ansonia too. I just think the Chargers might be the more complete team. I know Bloomfield's just so dynamic. I mean, the Kerr twins are electric. Davian Kerr has just been ridiculous out of the two of them. And the quarterback, Darian Foster, has been great. He's really an up-and-comer right now. But the problem is that they have a tendency to be a little bit one-dimensional. They really haven't had a consistent running game. I know they tried a bunch of different guys in the backfield, and if you can find a way to kind of stop them up front and make them throw a lot, you usually can lead to some success. But I know Bloomfield's run game kind of consists of throwing outs to the receivers and letting them do their stuff. I just think Ansonia's defense, which is so well coached, and they're aggressive, but also they play smart. I think they're going to be able to do a nice job of them. I don't know if they're going to contain them completely, but I think Ansonia is going to do just enough to be able to pull this one out. And ball control with Cassetti is going to be very, very important. If he can get a lot of first downs and run the ball, I think Ansonia is going to be in a really good spot. All right. That said, let's go to the Class SS Championship. Barlow versus Valley Regional Old Lyme.
Class SS Championship game features two programs that have only been to one state finals each. Valley Regional Old Lyme won the Class S large title in 2014, a 21-20 win over Ansonia, and Joel Barlow reached the Class M finals in 2017, losing to Killingly 41-14. Joel Barlow has been on a mission since last season ended. The Falcons barely missed out on the Class M playoffs, and this year they would not be left out of the dance. Led by Danny Shaven and the Falcons' feared triple option offense, the Falcons started the season with 6 straight wins before losing to Newtown by 10. They then lost to New Milford 2 weeks later and needed to win its season finale. Shaven took over, running for 5 touchdowns to beat Weston and punch his team's ticket into the playoffs.
I mean, we're versatile. We got a bunch of people we can give the ball to. It's not just a one-man show, which a lot of people think. I mean, we could give the ball, we could pitch the ball, we could do a lot.
The Falcons will be tasked with shutting down a very good Valley Regional Old Line team with many weapons.
The big thing is they're very balanced. They do a real good job of running the ball. Big offensive line. They move their linemen around, pull guys, so that kind of causes some matchup problems. And then obviously if you try to load the box, they're going to throw the ball down the field. They can stretch it with the receivers that they have. Quarterback does a real good job of extending plays and then finding guys down the field. So they definitely create some matchup problems. Hopefully we can use our front four to get some pressure and then get some work done in the secondary.
A little over 2 weeks ago, Valley Regional didn't know if it would make the playoffs. Despite only having one loss, they rooted hard and waited for their rivals Cromwell Portland to beat Rocky Hill to send them to the playoffs.
It has been quite the whirlwind. Praying, hoping, wishing, maybe even burning candles and everything else and incense, whatnot. Like, we're trying to do everything we can to get into the playoffs, and we got what we needed. And a lot of coaches and a lot of teams just want to be in the dance. You know what I mean? And once you get there, then you can try to make as much noise as possible. But I felt that we were due based off of what we did in the regular season, and I liked our chances when we got to that situation. Yeah.
Led by D'Angelo Jean-Pierre and Jacob Rand, the co-op won its first 5 games before losing in a 1-point classic to Cromwell Portland and have rallied to win its last 6 games to reach the finals for the second time in program history.
Yeah, it definitely feels good being here. I know before the season no one really expected us to be here. We're not supposed to be here, so it's a great feeling. Just have a great team bond. We just went through a good amount of adversity, especially last year. Really capitalized on the moment this summer, this off season. We got prepared, and we did what we had to do.
All right, Pete, I guess I'll go first here. I was talking to the Valley Regional guys at the luncheon on Tuesday, and D'Angelo Jean-Pierre was convinced that it was going to be a clean sweep for people picking Barlow against Valley Regional Old Lyme. Even said the 8-ball he was predicting. I don't know what the 8-ball is picked, but I'm going to confirm his suspicions, at least on my end. I'm going to pick Barlow in this spot to win the state championship. I actually thought Cromwell Portland was going to win this game at the beginning of the year. I had Cromwell Portland winning this, but certainly Barlow knocking off Cole Brisson and those guys in a just great game. Cole Peterson played, you think it's just Danny Gabe running around out there. Cole Peterson proved once again that Barlow is more than just a one-man band. Certainly in their defense was played pretty great. I think Valley Regional's got lots of weapons. Jacob Rand, Nick Cox played especially well in the semifinals, and Denzel Jean-Pierre's offense is electric if you get him the ball and in some space. Just a great job by Valley Regional getting here. I just think Barlow with the option offense going to be tough. I'm going to go with the Falcons. Pete.
I picked Joe Barlow in August, and I'm going to pick Joe Barlow now in December. I'm going with Shaban and the boys.
Wow, you're not the kiss of death this time, Pete. We'll see what happens there. Okay, now we move to the M Championship game. Notre Dame-West Haven versus unbeaten Berlin. The Class M Championship between Berlin and Notre Dame-West Haven featured two teams looking to win their first state championships since 2009. Berlin has long been a title contender, but has only one state championship to show for it, when current offensive coordinator Max DiLorenzo led the Redcoats to the 2009 Class M title over Bethel. Current coach Joe Resmowitz, who's been with the program as an assistant and now head coach, is anxious to add a second trophy to the school's coffers after falling short in 3 finals since then, in 2012, 2014, and a 2018 wipeout at the hands of St. Joseph.
We were there once, we won it once. If the game was being played at Municipal Field this weekend, I'd like our shot. We're 1-0 there, but it's just amazing. I think now being here for the second time, you want it. The kids want it. But I've been saying it all week, just pause and enjoy the experience too, because just being back here is really an incredible feeling for all of us. Max DiLorenzo, I was asking coaches that wanted to go, this is a guy that won the state championship, played at UConn at the highest level, and he says, I have to go, I love this, I have to be around all these other high school athletes, so it means a lot.
Led by senior quarterback and steady hand Lorenzo Mille and a cadre of talented underclassmen, the Redcoats hit a couple of speed bumps, like a 17-point comeback win over eventual Class S finalist Bloomfield, and endured some heartbreak when Coach Resmowitz's father died during the playoffs.
Coach texted us about his dad. We said, listen, Coach, you do what you have to do. Like, we'll take care of everything. We made sure the team was all good. I think it gave us a lot of motivation in the playoffs. Coach showed us everything for us. We all love him. He's like a second father to every one of us on the team. So, I think it gave us a lot of motivation.
Yet the Redcoats roared to a 10-0 unbeaten season and then defeated Brantford and then Rockville to reach the state final. Now they're looking to cement themselves as the best team in school history.
We put so much pride into this program. We put so much pride into what we do. For a whole entire year, maybe more, we've been working out every single day. Our whole team's tight. It would just mean everything. That'd be the best thing in the world.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. These kids started working really hard in the offseason. Lorenzo Mealy and Will Gomes and I stood on the sideline of the Platt Maloney game last year, and they looked right at me and said, Coach, we need to be playing in one of these games next year. I said, the offseason will dictate it, and they bought in the offseason. They've all worked really hard, and they've come together as a good group of guys.
A long-established power, Notre Dame-West Haven is back in its first finals 2014, but hasn't won a title since it upset Pomprog in the Class L final and finishing number 1 in 2009. 3-7 a year ago, the Green Knights have been led by a determined class of senior stars, including quarterback Matt Picota and Christian Lewis and tailback Jacob Staten, the 2022 SEC Tier 1 Player of the Year, who has run for over 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns.
It's so special. It's so exciting for the building. We have so much support from our building, from the administrators right on down to the custodial staff. Our building is excited and our players are excited, and I'm happy for my coaches and for our players.
The hard work and the determination of the senior-led team. There's 19 of us that are seniors that start, and the whole team is senior-led. So kind of as a group, we put our heads down and really worked hard to get to the place that we are today. And so without our seniors, I don't think we'd be here.
Notre Dame's only losses were to fellow SEC playoff teams West Haven in the season opener, and Cheshire and Fairfield Prep. They're coached by Joe DiCaprio, a dyed-in-the-wool Notre Dame guy who hopes to join his brother John and his mentor Tom Marcucci as the school's championship head coaches.
I mean, I would just be excited. I'm not a big rah-rah guy for myself, especially. I just want to win for the coaches, the team, in the building. I love this school. I love it. I love it. I don't want to imagine myself anywhere else. I think it would be good for our building. Again, we have so much support, so I would be, over the moon.
Pete, I know you are a notorious Berlin hater, but do they realistically have a shot to beat Notre Dame-West Haven in the Class M championship?
All right, look, they have a shot. They're here, right? They have a really good coaching staff in Joe Arasimowicz, my boy Max Di Lorenzo. He was giving me the business at the luncheon. Yeah, of course they have a shot, but I think Notre Dame is going to win this game. No, I think, look, Notre Dame had a tough time against Law because Law has John Nider. And I think John Nider is one of the best football players in this state. And Berlin's got a handful of different guys who do different things. Berlin doesn't have one back with over 100 carries this year.
Yeah.
They have a lot of different guys
effort.
who they can get. Yeah, they have a lot of different guys who can get the ball and do different things. They'll play the hot hand. We'll see who the hot hand is that day. If I'm going to bet anything, it's going to be on Kyle Melville, the sophomore. He's had 36 carries in the last 3 games, which I think leads all of them. But I just think this Notre Dame team just plays at a different level. They play at a different speed. I'm going to go with the Green Knights.
Pete, as much as it pains me to say this, I picked Notre Dame at midseason to win this class. I said if they got in, even at 5-5, that they would go on to win this class. I know Joe DiCaprio was not thrilled with me picking them to win it that long ago, and let me have it at the state championship luncheon a little bit. Say look, this is not easy, and for sure it wasn't. And as the Law game just proves it right there. John Nider did a great job. When you get to the playoffs, man, I think you can kind of throw the rest of the season out. It is no joke that you go to the playoffs. Anybody can beat anybody at any time. So in this spot, it's going to be a fight because I think Berlin's very good. I mean, obviously they got a ton of guys that they've been spreading the ball around to. And Lorenzo Melee has been kind of managing it very well. And I've seen them, their defense play pretty big in spot. They had a bunch of turnovers against Middletown a few weeks ago to kind of wrap up their regular season. But Notre Dame is just, plays in the SEC Tier 1. It's like dropping the extra bat when you leave the on-deck circle to go hit a home run. And, they have some weapons. Picota obviously has been very good at quarterback. Lewis has been a really good defender, and they've just got some of the other guys. But Jacob Staten has just really kind of notched it up into a whole new level of running back right now. He really put that Law game away. He's going to have a little bit of a tough turf to run on, but I still think I like Notre Dame-West Haven in this spot. All right, that moves us to the Class M championship. North Haven versus Killingly. The Class M championship features 2 teams, North Haven and Killingly, that are almost mirror images of each other, if not style, then by philosophy. They love to pound the football. Coached by Chad Neal, Killingly has been a player on the statewide stage for the better part of the last 8 years. It's reached the state final 3 times and won 2 championships, including last year's Class M title over Rockville. With many of those same players returning, including quarterback Thomas Drybolts, receiver Ben Jacks, and Soren Reef at running back, this generation looks to do something none of its predecessors could: repeat as state champs.
I definitely thought that going into the year. I knew we definitely had that potential. We had the skill on the team. We just had to put it all together and work throughout the season. It's just knowing we're playing in a bigger stadium. We got the chance to go back to back, but we're not looking at it any differently. We're still preparing the same. We're keeping a level head about it.
While Reef has assumed the role of the team's battering ram following standouts Jack Sharp and Spencer Lockwood before him, Drybolts and Jacks have teamed up to give Killingly a bona fide air attack for the first time.
Because of who we had back at quarterback with Thomas Drybolts, Ben Jacks at receiver, and Noah Colangelo. I think with those 3 guys, they're all playmakers. They came on late last year, made plays in big games for us, had a great offseason together. And when you have such a strong running game, it opens opportunities for those guys to get open.
Killingly's only loss was a stunning 41-26 loss to Wyndham at midseason, but that setback merely refocused this team's postseason drive. Killingly smothered Wethersfield in the quarterfinals, and then outlasted Massac in a 54-41 shootout to return to the state final. Standing in their way is North Haven, coached for more than 2 decades by Tony Sagnella, a star lineman at Hamden and Rutgers who earned a Super Bowl ring with the Washington Redskins. Sagnella's program at North Haven has turned the antique single-wing offense into a bona fide weapon, allowing them to compete in the cutthroat SEC Tier 1 division.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely be tired. We like seeding them. It's just funny because that's what we run all the time and nobody else runs that, so it's super different to the other team.
North Haven came close before, taking New Canaan to the brink in the 2015 Class L final, but the state championship remains missing from their resume.
No, I mean, I don't focus on it. You are pursuing it, though, every year. I mean, some years it's more realistic than others, but as Steve Philippone once said to me, you're pushing that rock up the hill every year. And yes, I think more for the people that have supported our program, I would love to see their faces when they get to, nestle up next to some of the storied programs in Connecticut and, for a short time at least say, hey, we belong here.
The Nighthawks are led by senior quarterback Jeff Carvis and junior running back Adam Pandolfi, who have combined for 2,000 yards rushing and 27 touchdowns. These North Haven upperclassmen grew up watching those players and are anxious to be the first team that at last puts North Haven over the championship hump.
Yeah, we grew up in town. I remember going to the game in 2015 when we were little kids, and it's super cool to actually be here. Killingly, great team, a lot of experience. They've been here last year. We've been watching film. They're a super great team. They have a lot of different, they do a lot of different stuff.
They're a great team. It's going to be a great challenge. We're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to playing at Rentschler Field. It's got a big stadium, We feel like it's going to be great.
All right, Pete, I'll go first. When I was at the luncheon, I had a couple coaches come up to me and they looked and said, there's no way North Haven's going to lose that game, right, against Killingly. And I don't know. I mean, maybe a month ago, if you'd said that, I would have agreed. I would have said there's just no way. They just pound that rock and they move the ball. But, against the Killingly team that's used to it, Killingly team, that's their MO too. They love that type of game. They love that type of game. They'll be ready to play that type of game, even if the offense is a little tricky. I'm sure North Haven will get its pops in. But on the other side, I really like Killingly's offense. Thomas Drybold, Ben Jacks, Noah Colangelo, and of course Soren Reef. When those guys are all doing their things and are able to kind of keep teams honest and balanced, I really like their chances. I'm going with Killingly here. I think they're battle tested. They won a championship last year. This is whole new territory for North Haven. I know I'm going against the SEC Tier 1, and maybe that's the deciding factor. North Haven did play just an amazing schedule and survived it. But I look at that Wilton game. I get a little worried about that game. That was a pretty tough competition there, and yeah, they pulled it out, but I don't know. North Haven, is North Haven ready for the stage now? I know these players are, but it's going to be a great game nonetheless. But I'm going to go with Killingly here. I really think the team is going to ride off into the sunset with a second consecutive victory, which has never happened. And plus, they love the idea of playing at Rentschler Field. Thomas Drybold said, look, we're really excited to play back on grass again. It's like old school. So they're an old school lunch pail team, and I like their chances here. I'm going with Killingly.
This one was really tough. I'm going with North Haven. I think the grass plays a huge benefit to them. I think they have the guys who can slow the game down. Jeff Carvis.
Oh man, Jeff Carvis.
Jeff Carvis and Adam Pandolfi, I think, are really going to just slow this game down. I think North Haven's going to win at the line of scrimmage. That Killingly loss to Wyndham just still doesn't sit well with me. And I know it doesn't sit well with them, and that's why they'll probably come out with, just absolutely make me with egg on my face. But I like North Haven here. I think I'm going to go with the SEC sweep.
We next go to the Class L championship. Maloney versus Blue Blood New Canaan.
The Class L matchup features the defending Class L champions Maloney and one of the premier blue blood programs in Connecticut, New Canaan. Maloney lost a ton of starters from last year's team that captured the first state title in program history, but it didn't stop the Spartans from starting the season on a hot streak. Josiah Gonzalez-Rose is the emotional and vocal leader of the team, helping first-year quarterback Kyle Valentine get comfortable, and junior Dante Kelly has exploded onto the scene, making plays in all three phases of the game. The Spartans opened on an 8-game win streak, including wins over Darien and a classic double overtime win against then number 1 Southington. The win propelled the Spartans to the top spot in the GameTimeCT media poll, though the next week Maloney lost in overtime to Glastonbury. But the team rallied, with wins on Thanksgiving, the quarterfinals, and the semifinals to return to the title game for the second straight year and third time under coach Kevin Frederick. Frederick said this team has some similarities to last year's group.
Biggest difference between the two teams, I mean, I say, every year the teams from year to year, no matter if championship team or not, you're different. Your personnel's different, leadership's different. I think their grit and toughness is similar. They're both, both teams are very tough teams, very coachable. These guys, both teams really listen really well, pay attention to, to details really well. So those things are important, obviously, in the making of a good championship football team. I think we're a little more athletic than we were last year, a little more speed than we were last year. So a little different styles there. I think this year we're going to beat you with our speed and our explosiveness.
This season, the Rams have flown under the radar, relying on a stout defense that has allowed just 112 points this season and scoring timely touchdowns. The Rams started the season 6-0 before losing to St. Joseph. The team won its next two and held on to defeat its rival, Darien, on Thanksgiving 13-10. Matt Salmini leads the defense with over 100 tackles and has made some big-time, game-changing plays. And Ty Groff, who is the Rams quarterback, is a true offensive weapon with his foot. Coach Lou Marinelli said his defense is ready for the challenge of stopping Maloney's offensive weapons.
They sure do. They have a lot of athletes and a lot of weapons that we have to kind of think about. But I think defensively our team has faced a lot of different offenses and have done very well. So it's just another challenge that we're going to have to try to figure out. But I mean they're really dynamic on offense. So we have our hands full.
Obviously it means a lot just to win a state championship no matter who you're going to play. Obviously New Canaan's a storied program. I consider Lou Marinelli one of the best coaches ever to step foot in Connecticut. He's just done an exceptional job. His program was in the state championship or in the semifinals. I saw something 8 years in a row for the semifinals. I mean, just a testament to what he did with his program and the buy-in that he has from his community and the kids.
And they're very well coached, and you can see they play well together. I mean, it's a team, and if one guy falters, the other guy picks up the slack. So you can see why they won the state championship last year and why they've been close before that. I think our group has come a long way. I never believed we were just talking the other day about, in the beginning of the year we were just hoping to be 500, but these seniors have come along so well. So I think we're ready for a challenge like this, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, Pete, your boy Kevin Maloney, who do you got against Lou Marinelli and the New Canaan Rams?
I like Maloney. I'm going with Kevin. I'm going with JoJo. I'm going with Dante Kelly. I'm going with Kyle Valentine. I'm going with all those guys on Maloney. I think this is the win that Kevin, winning the state championship last year was huge for them. They beat a CCC team in Windsor, put them on the map. I think a win against Lou Marinelli and New Canaan puts Maloney in the conversation as those, consistent machines in Connecticut high school football. I think Maloney, they just got this interesting swag about them where, yeah, it could be close. Yeah, they're blowing you out. Yeah, they're down, but they're never out. And I think against a team like New Canaan, who has an amazing, stout defense, I think they're allowing like 9 points a game. If Maloney can score on them, then Maloney's in good shape. But if Maloney's offense can't get anything going, I'm going to have JoJo or Dante return a punt for a score.
Yeah.
They could take a pick six to the house. This is an electric team in all three phases of the game, and I'm going with Maloney for that reason. I think this is a huge, huge win, and this win plants the flag for Maloney atop the state's best teams.
Pete, I'm going to go with Maloney too. I've just been picking against New Canaan all season long, come hell or high water. And sometimes it works out for me like it did, I guess, St. Joseph that time. And sometimes it doesn't, like my Cheshire pick against them last week. Listen, like you said, I think you hit it right on the head. Regardless of what happens to Maloney, they just keep coming at you. They got a little bit of swagger. I mean, Valentine's back. He was all fired up at the lunch. He said, hey, I'm back. He's like, oh, it was awful on the sidelines. It was nerve-wracking, but no, now I feel like I'm back. The best 5'5" quarterback in the state. Dante Kelly has had just an amazing postseason, and then JoJo Gonzalez has just been great for them. They got a swagger, and I think it comes from their coach. I don't think they are intimidated or going to be pushed around in any way. Even when the chips are down, they just have that fight, that swag to them, and I think that's really been what's been serving them really well so far. I don't think they look at New Canaan and go, oh my God, it's New Canaan, like maybe some teams do. So with that said, I also like them on that turf field over at Arute, which is really going to work in their favor. I mean, if it was at Rentschler Field, maybe I might trend a little bit more New Canaan. Listen, I have a hard time picking against New Canaan in a final. It doesn't happen often that they lose a final. But in this case, I'm going to go with Maloney. All right, so that leaves us our last championship game, the Class LL final, Greenwich versus their old pals, Fairfield Prep. They don't play in the same league, but Fairfield Prep and Greenwich are both large school Fairfield County rivals who will be renewing acquaintances in the state championship game on Saturday night at Rentschler Field. They've met twice before with a trophy on the line back in the 1980s, with Coach Earl Lavery's Jesuits toppling Mike Ornato's Cardinals both times. But 1988 remains the last time Fairfield Prep has hoisted a state football championship banner, losing in two subsequent appearances in 2013 and to Darien last year. Greenwich, meanwhile, has gone on to win 6 more championships, the last in 2018 under Coach John Marinelli, now an assistant at UConn. Former Greenwich All-State lineman and assistant Anthony Morello has since taken over the program and, after several frustrating endings, is anxious to at last make his mark as a head coach, becoming the first Greenwich native to lead the hometown Cardinals to a state football championship.
It's an amazing feeling. It's very easy to second guess yourself when things don't go your way, especially when you don't have any real lineage or, not a lot to your name, and you're just sort of out there. And the expectations are what they are at schools such as Greenwich. But to be able to get to the state championship and have the support of your coaches, your school and administration, and of course your players most of all, is a really good feeling.
He has a deep and talented class headlined by quarterback Jack Wilson, backs George Vamalakis and Jack Koningsberg, with receivers Dom DeLuca and James Wildham, and lineman Griffin Galetta. They started out the preseason number 1 and lost their 2 games by a mere 1 point each. They've since outscored their 2 playoff opponents 89-7 en route to the final.
We didn't have our sophomore season to develop. We had last year, which was kind of just like I want to say learning experience for everyone, because no one had any varsity experience. And then this year's kind of everything came together from freshman year now. All the coaches kind of learned how to coach us, where to put us, who to put where. I mean, that's why we're so dominant now. We're just all, they know us so well, we know what to do.
Despite graduating 3 GameTimeCT registered first-team All-State players and a host of other talent, Fairfield Prep, spurred by the memory of their teammate Jimmy McGrath, who was tragically killed last spring, and their desire to return the school to football glory, shook off a near-disastrous 1-3 start and embarked on an 8-game win streak to get to the final. They've been led by linebackers Tanner Langus and Bryce Muller, not to mention a revamped offensive attack headed by quarterback Tyler Smith and Ryan Prasano. Senior tailback Wally Wachowski's hoping to become the second member of his family to win a state championship. His father, Eric, was an integral part of that 1988 title.
To get back there is one thing. To get back there after doing some soul searching in the first quarter of the season almost, that says a lot too. I I think it speaks to their character. I think it speaks to them growing up. I think it speaks to them buying in to stuff that we always preach, but it's put to the test when things don't go your way. And that's great. That's part of life. But I knew they had it in them, and this second half was a great rise up. I'm a little speechless only because to be here means a lot for so many people.
These teams met twice last year, with Greenwich taking the regular season matchup 14-7, but Fairfield Prep knocking Wilson and then Fairfield Prep out of last year's quarterfinals. Now they meet again with a prestigious Class LL championship and perhaps the #1 ranking on the line. So, Pete, lots to kind of digest there for Fairfield Prep versus Greenwich. I mean, these are two teams that have played each other twice in the state championship games. Fairfield Prep owes its titles to Greenwich. Thank you, Greenwich. And their last one, 1988. Fairfield Prep has the last time they won a state champ, they've been chasing that title ever since. They've been there a few times. Were there last year, but now they're facing a Greenwich team that, like we just said, it's just firing on all cylinders. Oh, just like them, it's going to be a heavyweight battle. What do you want to do? You want to go first, or should I go first?
I'll go first. I'm going with Greenwich. I think Greenwich is the best team in the state. I think they have the most weapons. I think they have the best 11 guys on both sides of the ball when they're playing together. I think Jack Wilson's one of the best quarterbacks in the state. I think Konsberg and Vamalakis are a dangerous 1-2 punch at the running game.
Nice job.
Thank you. I practiced that. I think if James Walgram's not gonna beat you, Charlie Dixon will. And I think Dom DeLuca is a matchup nightmare. He's faster. He's bigger than any defensive back who's going to cover him, and he's bigger than any linebacker who's going to step in front of him. And then defensively, my boy, my dog, Griffin Galata, is just a menace. He is just in the backfield. Him and DeLuca just causing chaos. John Insignia is he's got, he's just in every tackle. He's flying around the field. I just think Greenwich is the best team in the state, and I think they're going to go out there and prove that on Saturday.
Pete, I think you're right. I think Greenwich is playing right now like the best team in the state. Those two semi and quarterfinal matchups, no contest whatsoever. That said, I think Fairfield Prep is also playing like one of the best teams in the state. It is going to be a heavyweight matchup. I mean, Tyler Smith throwing 4 touchdowns in the second half last week against Trumbull. It was great. I mean, obviously their defense has been there all season long, and Fairfield Prep getting the offense going and the run game going, and the receivers, as tall receivers there, are going to be a matchup problem for Greenwich. But that said, like you said, Jack Wilson, Dixon, these guys, I think we all knew at the beginning of the season that this was going to be the team to beat. Teams beat them at one point apiece. Greenwich has been great otherwise. I can't pick against them at this point. I voted for them at #1 to start the year. I'm going to say that they're going to end the season the way they started it, by becoming the #1 team in the state. Although it's just an epic game. Get your tickets now. I guess the only way you can get tickets, folks, is if you go online. No more, you have to get online, and it's all phone, and so make sure you secure that. Don't go to the stadium looking to get a walk up. Get your tickets in advance. But that will be a great one to cap things off at Rentschler Field. So there you go, Pete. A couple of surprising picks. I'm anxious to see what the board looks like, but Forno is picked against us here for Fairfield Prep. I don't know if I have a shot to win this thing. I think it's possible if I Stewart. No shot. No shot.
Yeah, the board is done. It has not been released yet. Outside, I haven't done my 8-ball. Haven't done my 8-ball shakes yet. So I got to do that. But the way the board looks, the only way Dave Stewart can lose is if him and Fornabayo tie, and Forno will get the tiebreaker on regular season wins.
Yeah, look at that.
So it's in Stewart's hands. He was in his hands. He was up 2 games last year and lost going into the finals. He went 1-3 in the finals last year. So
will he pick New Canaan is the big question. So check out the board. Yeah. Will Dave Stewart pick against New Canaan? Probably not happening. That's right. Never. There is handicapping himself. He just cannot bring himself. Guy, New Canaan, tell Dave it's okay. You're not gonna hate him if he picks against you. You can tell him that. So there you go, Pete. It was a great semifinal round, and we're gonna have some great championships. I'm excited. It's gonna stink. We're both on different sides. That's my one problem about this whole thing. I really wish it could be at one spot. I don't like the idea of championships being played all over the place. But I mean, again, if you're gonna have 6 championships, there's just no way that that's a possibility unless they go back to 4, which I think that they will eventually do in the future. Some sort of expanded, playoffs, which I don't want either. But I think that's what the future looks like. So, but again, these are if you don't like 6 championships like I don't, think of these as more like bowl games, and away we go. And they should be wherever you end up. It should be an exciting game if you can do the 2 sites. Go for it. But Pete, any final thoughts before we wrap this up and continue on with our coverage for the rest of the week?
Yeah, if you live in Fairfield County, shut up and drive to UConn. Drive to Central. Like, I'm tired of this Boyle Stadium nonsense. I am. We complained for years that these state championships need to be held at UConn, at Central, at these big time facilities. And okay, we have it. I'm tired of this Boyle Stadium and this, and this. Get in your car, drive. Connecticut's not a big state. It's not hard. Go and fill out these places. I mean, Rentschler can hold like 40,000. So, it's not like there's going to be 40,000 people there. But go and fill out these freaking places, man. Come on. We complained about it enough. We whined about it enough for years. Stop whining. Go to the games. We got what we wanted.
Yeah. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. When it was 6 or whatever it is, when it was different sites, when it were high school sites and it didn't really matter. Okay, keep Boyle on reserve in case it's 2 Fairfield County teams. I think it's a good matchup down there to do that. I think it's a great venue for it. But when we've had a predetermined site, a college site that is doing a lot of stuff to get itself ready to host these things, and it's a lot of money to be spent, a lot of logistics. Stop whining and go to the games, please. I agree with Pete. Like, enough of the Boyle Stadium stuff. It's a bad look, guys. It's a bad look. Just get in your car and drive. It's not that bad. It's a Saturday. I know Fairfield. I know getting out of Fairfield County is tough, but yeah, I agree with you. That said, I'm anxious to go. I don't have that type of problem. It's a straight shot up 91, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about this whole thing. I'm excited about the whole weekend being over, to be honest with you. It's been a long season, but again.
Yeah, well, then the hard part starts.
Yeah. No, then we got to pick an all-state team. We got to recap and then pick an all-state team. But this is the fun part. The fun part is getting on the field, putting all the nonsense of the past, 3 months out of your head, all that stuff. Get it out of your head and just enjoy some great championship games. So I'm anxious for that. Pete, thank you very much. And go team. This has been the Pick'em Podcast / Meat Grinder crossover episode. For Pete Paguaga, I'm Sean Patrick Bowley.
Love you all.
Bye.